Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Cloud Security webcast. I'm Kevin Cott, a Managed Service Specialist at Reachable. I'm joined this morning by Head of our Business Consulting Group, Brian Kane. I'll quickly present a Reachable overview, and then Brian will deliver the technical content of the webcast. I've got some webcast guidance to begin with. All attendees are muted during the presentation. We will have a question and answer session at the end, so please note down any questions that occur to you during the course of the presentation, or if you've got the capability to leave a message in the IM window, please feel free to do so, and we'll cover those off at the end. If you require any follow-up, then please contact a member of your account team, or if you're new to Reachable, then you can contact us on inquiries@reachable.com. The webcast is going to be recording, and we will share a link with you following the webcast. So, Reachable are a pure-play Microsoft partner, founded in 2005. We're seen as a technical powerhouse in the Microsoft partner ecosystem. Our services are focused on helping our customers to leverage maximum value from their investment in Microsoft licensing to ensure you consume and deploy your entitlements in the most effective way possibly. We've been shortlisted as Microsoft UK Partner of the Year on numerous occasions, and we're immensely proud to be crowned Partner of the Year in 2015 in what was only our 10th year of trading. We've also been recognised locally and nationally for our exploits in the IT industry, as well as for corporate social responsibility and our Sunday Times Top 100 employer. We have been pioneering digital transformation in the UK for a number of years. And here you can see our 3 customer-ready strategies. Connected Business focuses on delivering the right information to the right person at the right time on the right device, allowing them to make informed business decisions. A great example of where we've delivered Connected Business successfully is where we worked with an emergency services provider to develop a critical mission intelligence application that allowed them to be aware of their surroundings in advance of attending any emergency situation. EUC is end user computing, focused on providing your user community with the right tools to perform their roles as effectively as possible. This typically manifests itself in a secure mobile working strategy. And Optimized Service Vision is where we assess the most suitable home for your infrastructure and your applications, streamline business processes, and make sure that you drive efficiencies from optimizing your data center operations. A recent example of a successful Optimized Service Vision is where we moved a local city council from an outdated outsourced agreement which was inflexible, costly, and didn't allow them to meet their citizens' needs effectively. Here you can see how the organization is structured. It's effectively comprised of 3 divisions. Consulting, which is split into business and technical consulting. The business group is made up of enterprise architects, engagement managers, and business analysts. This team focuses on aligning technologies with strategic business outcomes. Rather than focusing on specific technologies, this team provides you with a roadmap or mechanisms on how to achieve your desired state. The business analyst function within this team will help you to address user adoption, training, and education to ensure your user community can effectively use the new tools and methods of working available. Our technical consulting team is made up of 2 teams where our subject matter experts sit. All of our consultants are specialists in their chosen field. We don't employ any generalists in this team, which means that every consultant that attends site is a specialist in their chosen technology area. Here you can see a more detailed breakdown of the technologies that live in this team. Business productivity, which includes technologies like SharePoint and Office 365, CRM, We have an in-house application development team. We have our data platform team, which deal with technologies like SQL and business intelligence, UC and messaging, which makes up Exchange and Skype, and the cloud infrastructure team who deal with SCCM, Azure, identity and access. Our managed services division is a team of dedicated support professionals who deliver a wide range of support and managed services, which are designed to monitor, maintain, and optimize your technology solutions through their life cycle. The team is backed up by a team of service delivery managers who follow ITIL methodologies and is fully ISO compliant. In addition to this, all of the staff at Reachable are security cleared to give you a level of confidence that you're dealing with dependable people. Our services in the managed services team are a blend of reactive and proactive to ensure that your IT operations run smoothly. And we implement improvements and enhancements to make sure that you continue to drive value from those technology investments. The third division at Reachable is our solutions department, and this is made up of Reachable Education, Akin, which is our customer loyalty platform aimed at the retail market, and Nimos, which is a safeguarding application. Reachable Education was born from our need to create our own skilled workforce. We identified a shortage in the market for skilled IT resources and developed our own apprenticeship scheme. Following the success of this program,
investments. That sometimes is a catalyst for people to start to look at cloud technologies. But then you've got other organizations who are actually just looking at innovation and looking to find ways in which they can go about their business, but in a much better way. And that's obviously driving, people looking at cloud to understand what's available there today and what's coming down the line to see if they can take advantage of those for their organizations. So common patterns in terms of cloud usage, really, it's all just about, there's different benefits for different organizations. I'm sure you can probably relate to some of these, but essentially, we're looking to build on core services, to make sure we've got an agile IT capability within an organization so you can respond to your business requirements quicker. And obviously we can look for some strategic opportunities as well. This slide has got the slowest cloud in the world. This is not representative of the Microsoft cloud. So people say, what is Azure? Some people, talk about Azure as a thing, and there's lots of different, lots of things that people consider when they think about Azure. Yes, it's absolutely all of those things there. I'm sure everybody's probably aware of cloud computing models where we've got on-premises capability and service delivery. We can then move into infrastructure as a service that can be delivered through Azure. And then we've got platform as a service or more advanced workloads that go beyond just providing some infrastructure, all the way through to then software as a service, Office 365 being a good example of that. And the differences between all of those different types of service delivery is where the responsibility lies between the cloud services vendor or the organization themselves. Obviously, to the left, where we're on premises, then obviously all of the responsibility is borne by the organization in terms of service delivery, service continuity, and innovation. And as you move towards the right, then obviously that responsibility starts to move towards a cloud services provider in terms of the service delivery. The difference is really is that towards the left, you've got greater cost and greater control. Towards the right, you can create some cost savings and you can create some efficiencies. So as we move on from infrastructure, we can obviously see some efficiency by moving infrastructure into Azure and using infrastructure as a service, and there are some benefits in doing that. But the real benefits come when you start to use some of the more advanced workloads to provide additional business benefits and additional business innovation, and that's where that generally comes from. So, when we talk about Azure, we don't really just want to talk about infrastructure as a service. We really should be looking at the more advanced workloads to bring bigger benefits to our organizations. This is not an eye test whatsoever, but you can see when we start talking about Azure and people talk of Azure, then really it's all of these services, and there's more coming almost on a month-by-month basis. So there's essentially a whole load of services that work together to provide IT service provision. Now, naturally, when you've got all of these services that have been delivered from a public cloud provider such as Azure, then we need to make sure that we've got the ability to trust that cloud provider. We're going to trust them in providing that service that we require. And this largely comes down to security and privacy, shared responsibility, as we saw on the other slide, and making sure that, in terms of our legal compliance and regulatory responsibilities, then we've got all of those things covered off as well. Because those things don't go away when we move to a cloud services model. It's up to the organization to make sure that, that their IT service provision meets all of their internal policies or any particular compliance that they're responsible for or subject to. So historically, we've looked at an IT environment as being a bit of a perimeter approach. So, in terms of security, we've built strong defenses at the perimeter to protect all of our data or internal IT assets that sit within the organization. And historically, that's the way that security has been viewed and the way in which it's we've developed our IT services with that kind of a model in mind. Now, what we're seeing now is that actually outside of our IT environment is where the opportunity lies. So, we can start to we're seeing organisations now who are starting to open up their IT environment, or starting to consume services from outside of that ring-fenced environment that is traditional. And we're now starting to see that actually your IT environment that you're responsible for, or that you're using, or that you've got parts of your data within, actually extends far beyond the perimeter of your network, or the perimeter of even your physical buildings. So this is what's driving a change in the approach to security. So we can see that those external places, those external suppliers that we're working with, where we're sharing data or where we're taking services from, they're actually connected to other things as well. And so we can start to see that when we look at our data and where it's going and who's using it and all that sort of thing, then actually, we need to still maintain that control over that data. We need to make sure that we understand where it's going, who's using it, and what's going on with it at all times. So we start to look at our security posture and start to think about the things that are really important to us. So, the traditional model is protect, detect, and respond, and we need to make sure that we're using that kind of a model, but within this new environment in which most organisations are now starting to work with. So it needs to evolve in the approach. Really, intelligence comes into play in part of this. We move from being too dependent on the protect part of our security posture, and we start to get a more balanced approach towards detecting where we need to provide focus, and looking for breaches as and if they happen across all endpoints, from sensors to data centers, and just being able to detect behavioral modeling and using machine learning to try and understand how we detect problems that might be occurring. So this is a fairly big statement. So Microsoft is the biggest security company you've probably never heard of. So it's one of those things where Satya Nadella noted in 2015 that this is one of the things that he said, and the breadth and strength of the security platform is actually proof of this. So as a company, Microsoft spends over £1 billion each year on security research and development, and they're actively integrating breakthroughs into products and services that we rely on every day. And that's why Microsoft are able to provide levels of protection that many internal teams can't. When you think about the amount of R&D that organizations, whether internal IT teams, are looking at, and how much research is going into what are the current breaches, the zero-day attacks and that sort of thing, it's just impossible to keep up with it at scale. So it's really important to emphasize that actually building a solution that delivers on the security and the protection that IT needs, but also helps its end users, it's not a trivial undertaking. It's not something that can be taken lightly. So we need to rely on organizations such as Microsoft to continue to develop the capabilities and to make sure that protection is provided throughout their products. So as we said, a lot of money spent on research and development and security. Here's some stats around the types of things that Microsoft are seeing in terms of authentication requests, for example. 300 billion user authentications each month, 200 million SQL database hours every year, 200 billion emails analyzed for spam and malware, 500 trillion storage objects in Azure, 60 billion hits to websites in Azure the web app service. So because of that scale, Microsoft are in a almost unique position to be able to understand what are the threats, what are the attack vectors that they're seeing across that estate, and they're able to respond to those issues and protect everybody that's consuming services from the Microsoft cloud. So if one person's being attacked, then everybody gets the benefit of that, because everybody can see that the learning that Microsoft gets from that single attack actually goes across everybody's protection. So we also have some obviously shared responsibilities, as we looked at earlier on. One of the things that obviously there's lots of different responsibilities in terms of security. Some of it is shared with Microsoft, and some of it we own ourselves as organisations. It's probably worthwhile referring to the 14 Cloud Security Controls for UK Cloud. So that paper is published publicly. It's some controls that HMG and particularly public sector customers are subject to, but actually it's a lot of it is common sense, and it's really relevant to commercial organisations and non-public sector organisations just as much. So it's certainly worthwhile taking a look at that and having a read through. In terms of the Trust Centre, so Microsoft, their cloud services have got lots of certifications. They're meeting lots of international standards, as well as standards that are sort of UK specific. The ones we've highlighted there are the ones that are around the UK that are probably of the interest to anybody consuming services from the UK. So if you start to look, let's just break out a little bit and look at Office 365 and the EM&S suite. So I think everybody will be familiar with Office 365 around what are the capabilities in terms of authoring, email, sharing content, obviously instant messaging, meetings, voice, that sort of thing, and then analytics. Those are all capabilities that we've got in the Office 365 suite. Lots of customers come to us and say, I want some Office 365, please. I'd like to move in that direction. I'd like to consume those kinds of services. But not very many customers come to us and say, I'd like some Office 365, please, and I'd also like it all to be incredibly secure with these particular requirements, these security requirements. So it's always good to think about those sorts of things before you start deploying Office 365, because then you know the types of things that are going to be important, and you can get the right type and the right level of security with the right products, and obviously you can license it in the most appropriate way. We've got a slide here, obviously, in terms of Office 365. You might have seen this before, but there's lots of content, lots of capability within Office 365. Goes far and beyond Exchange, SharePoint, and Skype for Business. Lots of organisations are starting to look at these other capabilities that are within Office 365, and we need to make sure that all of it is being used in an appropriate way and being secured in the way in which is required for the organisation. And that's where the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite comes in. So essentially, it's made up of a few different capabilities, different security products that can help us secure both Office 365 services, but also help us secure our data wherever it resides. So as part of the E3 SKU, these are the capabilities that we get. So we get access to identity and access management, managed mobile productivity, information protection, and identity-driven security. There is an E5 SKU which gives you some additional capabilities on top of that, and obviously, if you're looking into the licensing and the capabilities, that'll help you make a decision as to which one's right for you. This is another version of the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite, and it helps you to understand whereabouts the products sit and where they provide value. So, for example, we've got the Advanced Threat Analytics, helps IT detect threats early and provide forensic investigation to keep cyber criminals out. So this is where we've got some really intelligent ways of looking at the way people are accessing their services and looking for anomalies. So where we've got an anomaly, we can start to respond to that, understand if it's actually a problem. If it is, we can have automated responses, or we can have manual responses, obviously. Azure Active Directory Premium, the security reports in there help to identify risks around logins and that sort of thing. And paired with Active Directory Identity Protection gives IT the ability to automatically block access to applications based on real-time risk scoring and identities and logins. Cloud App Security provides deep visibility and control of data inside of cloud applications. So we can actually use that to detect which cloud-based applications are already in use within your organizations, whether that's sanctioned or via shadow IT. Intune, so Microsoft Intune manages and secures corporate data on mobile devices and collaborated with corporate applications. Azure Information Protection helps keep data secure and encrypted throughout the customer's environment, but also extends externally wherever the data is shared outside of the organization. So you're able to protect your data even when it's not sitting on one of your own pieces of infrastructure, when it's sitting on somebody else's infrastructure, or where it's being shared either in a sanctioned way or otherwise. So essentially, cloud identity is a hybrid environment. So we live in a world where software systems are mingled across infrastructures and located both on premises and in the cloud, and we need that with our identity services as well. Bring your own application, that generally is going out across the enterprises now. Personal applications are being used within organizations, things like Dropbox, Evernote. People just want to work in the way in which they want to work. But sometimes organisations don't fully understand whether that's taking place or not. And if there's a sanctioned corporate capability, then that's the one really we should be driving our users to, rather than allowing them to use unsanctioned and unmanaged ways of working, because that obviously increases our security. It causes potentially a problem with data leakage, and it could potentially provide a security problem as well. So essentially what we're seeing now is that actually identity is the new way of, it is the way of controlling security within our organizations, because as we've seen earlier, perimeter security is not good enough now. It doesn't allow our users to work in the way in which they need to. But we still need to maintain control over our data and over our services. Identity is very quickly becoming the way to do that. So obviously the way that Microsoft work is that Azure Active Directory is at the heart of all of this. So there's various different services of Azure Active Directory. There's a free service, a basic service, and then a premium service. The premium services are the ones that you get within EM&S, both in Plan 1 and Plan 2. So essentially what we've got here is some seamless authentication through Active Directory domain services, Azure Active Directory, and then external directories as well. So they can all be linked together so that the user actually just uses one set of credentials to access on-premises services, cloud-based services through the Azure cloud, or third-party services as well, where we've integrated them with Azure Active Directory. So it's quite possible that somebody could be accessing a corporate Twitter account using their corporate Active Directory credentials, and what we've got then is the ability to control that user's access to those other services, whether they be third party or not. So if, for example, a member of the marketing team leaves the organization, then we can switch off their access to the corporate Twitter feed just by switching off their Active Directory credentials. I'll just let this slide build out so that you can see the different ways in which we can, the ways in which Active Directory helps us in each of these different capabilities. So when we think about Intune, let's just drop into have a little bit of a closer look at some of the products within the EM&S suite. So Intune, lots of people think it's a mobile device management capability, and lo and behold, yes, it absolutely is. It can do mobile device management without a doubt. But in addition, we can also do mobile application management, and we can also do PC management as well through the Intune capability. So in terms of mobile device management, I think most people understand that we've got the ability to manage Windows, iOS, Android devices. That's all fine. That's not a problem at all. In terms of mobile application management, this is where we can start to publish applications that have got particular constraints. For example, you might want to have a managed application that's sitting on a user's personal device, and that could be so that let's just say, for example, so that they can access their corporate email using a managed Outlook application, and we can then prevent that data that's stored within that email application from being leaked out to one of the personal applications that are also sitting on the device. So we've got capability through mobile application management to do those kinds of things. And then obviously we've got a further capability in terms of PC management. So we can do that lightweight, agentless management from the cloud, or we can deliver agent-based management as well. Obviously, we can connect to Intune via System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM, and so we can manage all the devices from one place, whether they're in the cloud or on premises or whatever. So obviously Intune gives us these capabilities about managing iOS, Android, Windows Mobile, Mac OS. So we can manage a really mixed environment through Intune, and obviously with the capabilities that we've got within SCCM, then that all bolts in as well. Azure Information Protection is one of those technologies that's part of the EM&S suite that. I don't think it gets enough. It doesn't get enough attention from customers, and it's one that I like to shout about in particular. So essentially, it allows organisations to classify data based on its sensitivity. We can add data labels. You can see in the bottom left-hand side of this slide where we've classified this particular data as company confidential. And that's done through Azure Information Protection. So we've chosen our own classifications for our data, and we've uploaded that into Azure Information Protection, and that allows users to then select those classifications based on what they know about within their files and their data. So in addition, once we've classified a piece of data, we can then apply a particular treatment as is necessary. So that could be, for example, that we're going to encrypt data that meets particular that has been classified in a particular way, and that classification and that protection using Azure RMS and the encryption capabilities from the Azure cloud, that stays with that data at all times. So once you've classified some data and it's had that particular treatment applied, you can then share that externally, and that protection goes with that file. It's a very simple and one-click process. So essentially, it's a set of buttons that get added into the Office suite, and that goes across obviously Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, those sorts of things, and it's really easy to then start to classify this data. Obviously, we've got the ability as well to track and report on shared data usage. So what that means is when you've shared a file externally, because you've classified it, and we've got we can track that file then to find out where it's being accessed and who's accessing it and in which physical locations. So it could well be that that's a way in which we can start to track where identities have been stolen, as an example. A valid user could be accessing a valid file, but if they're accessing it from a place that's not expected, then that can help us detect where there's a problem. So in terms of Azure Information Protection, obviously there's essentially 5 steps. Classify, that can either be done automatically or manually by the user, and you get to choose which way you want to do it. You then get to label the data in the same way that this slide deck's got a label bottom left-hand side there, so that everybody can see that this slide deck has been classified in this particular way. We then get the option to be able to then protect the data, with some particular data treatments. We can monitor, we can see who's accessing where and when and that sort of thing, and we can then respond to any particular problems that we might have, including the revocation of access to particular data, even when it's not stored on your particular infrastructure. With regards to Microsoft Advanced Threat Analytics, so really this is it's another capability where I think lots of people have laid claim to this particular quote, but somebody once said that there's 2 types of organisations. So there's those that have been hacked, and there's those that don't know they've been hacked. And essentially, what we're saying here is there's about 140 days from that elapse from an attack actually happening to it being detected in general. So 140 days that somebody with ill intentions is within your organisation, and what they're doing in that time, who knows? So generally, what we're doing with advanced threat analytics is we're using behavioural analytics to look for anomalies, trying to catch where somebody's doing something that they wouldn't normally do, and that can then lead us perhaps to somewhere where some valid credentials have been stolen. So it allows us to monitor access and just pop up an alert to the help desk as an example, or to a security person who's monitoring these things, to say that we think this is a particular problem and these are the things that you ought to be doing about it. Cloud app security, as we've discussed, obviously we can discover the cloud apps that are being used on your network, either via shadow IT or via sanctioned cloud applications. We can assess the risks associated with those applications, and then we can start to apply policies that can take control of data that people are actually sharing on those applications. So that's very good in terms of detecting what people are using, but also in terms of controlling how people are using cloud-based applications. In terms of advanced threat protection, so really this is a service that is used for making sure that particular emails or attachments are safe before the user actually opens them. So as those things are flowing in and out of the environment, then we can start to open up those files or those attachments in a safe environment and determine what they're going to do before the user actually clicks on them and opens them up. So that's obviously going to help you with things like zero-day attacks, and it provides you with that protection sort of before they've actually clicked on the attachment or the link. In terms of email, so obviously UK government provides guidance on the use of secure email. Again, some of these recommendations are really useful whether you're public sector or not. So looking at some of the capabilities around domain-based messaging authentication, reporting and conformance, DMARC. There's also some things around domain keys identification in email, DKIM, and SPF, the Sender Policy Framework. So these capabilities are all built within the Office 365 suite. They can all be switched on, and it provides you with additional levels of protection around your email environment. We've got a little bit of information here really around DKIM and DMARC. It's just going to guard against things like phishing attacks, those sorts of particular security issues. Again, so there's some things in here around whether you're using your own domain name in Office 365 or whether you're using the onmicrosoft.com domain name that be allocated to your tenant. But it's worthwhile just having a look through to see if you've got these things enabled within your email environment when you're in Office 365. Not all of these things are enabled by default. Some of them are, and some of them are not, and some enabled with caveats. So it's worthwhile looking into this and understanding if you've got them switched on if you're using Office 365. Office 365 Information Rights Management provides you with the capabilities to manage who's got access to information that's stored in Office 365. So it goes across email and SharePoint and OneDrive for Business, those kinds of capabilities. We've got the ability, obviously, to do message encryption, that sort of thing. And these are just capabilities that are built into Office 365 that organizations should be making use of. We've got the Azure Security Center, and so this is really about getting visibility and control of your environment, making sure that you've got the right types of security. And also, it's where Microsoft can look at your tenant and the services that you're using from Azure, and it can provide you with recommendations about why things that you can do to be able to secure the environment a bit better, or to be able to look at recommendations for them to improve your security posture when you're using Azure services. So I haven't got a live demo of this, but this is a screenshot taken of a colleague's tenant. He doesn't have a great deal of things in his tenant, but you can see that you can just access it through the Azure management portal. The security center's in there, and it'll give you, a score based on your services and the way in which you've got Azure configured at the moment. And you can see on the right-hand side there some recommendations where Microsoft are saying you should be looking at these things to improve your security posture in Azure. Likewise, in Office 365, we've got a similar thing. So the Office 365 Secure Score provides you with insight into your security posture within Office 365. Again, it'll give you a score based on the things that you've got configured, and it'll give you some recommendations around how you can improve your security posture when you're using Office 365. Obviously, there's more and more stuff coming out now. That security is something that Microsoft are incredibly well focused on, and they're obviously developing the security capabilities all of the time. So just as a bit of a recap, I thought it'd be useful to put this slide in just to try and help people understand where security fits within the different offerings from Microsoft. So obviously in terms of secure email, DMARC, DKIM, secure score for Office 365, advanced threat protection, information rights management, that's all held within Office 365, and you can get access to them based on your licensing model. You'll get access to some or all of those capabilities. EM&S, so enterprise mobility and security, that layers on additional capabilities in terms of Azure Active Directory Premium, Intune, Azure Information Protection, which is the key thing which does all of the data labeling and data treatment, advanced threat analytics and cloud app security. Azure itself, if you've got an Azure tenant and you're using Azure Active Directory, obviously identity is the new secure control plane, so you've got some of that capability built in already. But also you've got the Azure Security Center, which is going to help you maintain a good security posture and give you some recommendations as to how you can make sure that you're running in a secure manner. And then lastly, let's not forget good old Windows 10. There's security capabilities built into Windows 10 that were not built into previous versions of the operating system. And so in order to make sure that you've got the best possible security posture across your environment, you need to make sure you're using the most up-to-date tools, and Windows 10 is part of that. So some of the capabilities, obviously we've got BitLocker, that's been around for a while, but we've got that within Windows 10 to make sure that the device encryption capability is there. We've got Credential Guard and Device Guard, where we're able to use some of the Windows 10 capabilities to make sure that the user, when they're using that device and the device itself, is as secure as it possibly can be. And then we've got Windows Defender that's built into the operating system as a antivirus capability. So that's all the content that we had to cover. I think we've got 10 minutes left to go. So I guess the question now is, are there any questions? Just have a quick look in the IM window and see what we can find out. Does Intune allow you to change your AD password if you exclusively use a mobile device and never come into the office? So I wouldn't say that's an Intune capability, it's more of an Azure Active Directory capability, but there is a self-service password reset that you can do just through a web browser, and that's a capability that's built into Azure Active Directory Premium, so that's all in there.
Hi. Hi. Hello.
Oh, hello there.
Oh, hi. It's Livia here.
Hello.
Hi. I've got a question. Sorry, I'm on my BlackBerry, so I don't have access to IM. You mentioned about it's possible to protect your own data even when it's on another system.
Yep.
I wondered if you could just expand on that and explain how that happens, how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So Azure Information Protection is generally the capability. But this is where we're talking about being able to classify data and then provide a treatment based on that classification. Rights management is the technology that allows you to provide specific access to particular files. And so what we can say is we can wrap an individual file, let's just say a Word document, we can put a security wrapper around that and say that only these particular people are allowed to access it. And when they access it, they can only do these things with it. And so that security wrapper goes with the Word document in this case, wherever it goes. So if you email that to somebody, then they'll need a Microsoft account to be able to then access that file. So when they try and access it, they'll open it, double click it, try and open it in Word, and what will happen is they'll be asked for some credentials, and they'll need to have a Microsoft account to be able to say, yep, it's me, here's my username, and here's my password, and you put those in, and then it will provide you with access to that particular file. And that's kind of what gives us the ability to then revoke access if we want to, because that is a check that's done against Azure Active Directory when that user accesses, so that we can identify where they're accessing from, and also we can identify whether they're using the correct credentials or not. And if at any point you want to revoke access, then we do that through a process within that the user can do themselves. And that just sets a marker against that file that then says, actually, when that user now tries to access that file, deny access, and then it stops access straight away. So effectively, they end up with an encrypted bit of data on their device that they just can't get access to.
Okay. I have one other question, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
If you're sending data in transit from Azure Office 365 to a recipient which doesn't support TLS, how is that data in transit protected and encrypted?
So there's different ways in which you can share data from Office 365. You can send the data to the individual, for example, sending an attachment, or actually you can make sure that the data remains within your tenant in Office 365 and just provide access to it. So I guess you've got a few different options there. It's just about picking the right one for that particular circumstance. So it may be that you've got some data that you don't actually want to transmit, you don't want to send them the data, you just want to give them access to it. That could be a way around it. Or we could send the data, have it encrypted as it goes, and then when they access the data, then they get a single one-time session key to be able to access that data as it arrives. So I guess I need to understand a little bit more about the scenario, but there's a few different options there where we can make sure that the data is protected and still give access to a third party.
Okay, thanks.
I think we've had another question come in on IM from Rob.
Do we need to back up our data in Office 365 like we do on-prem, or do we rely on Microsoft's cloud-hosted recycle bins, etc.? So backup is always a really good question, and this is where you need to look at backup from a new way. So traditionally, when we've looked at backup historically, we looked at it for a couple of different reasons. Is it to guard against the accidental deletion of some data? So we need to be able to restore some data because it's, it might have become corrupt or been accidentally deleted, or are we backing up so that we can then provide a disaster recovery kind of capability? So with Office 365, you're buying it as software as a service, so the disaster recovery capability kind of goes away. So you're paying Microsoft for them to make sure that Office 365 is available, and that you've got access to you've got access to the service and your data. That's effectively what you're paying Microsoft for. So they've covered off the disaster recovery capability, if you like. So that brings us back to the accidental deletion. So you can back up data if you want to in Office 365, or you can use, like you say, the recycle bins that are built into the service, and then it's just a case of understanding whether the recycle bin capacity and whether the settings within the recycle bin are going to meet your requirements in terms of accidental deletion. So it's just about understanding what's best and will it meet your requirements or not, and then you can then determine whether you need to back up or not.
Thanks, Rob.
All right, I think we're coming up on 11 o'clock.
Yep, so we've just unmuted all participants. Does anyone else in the audience have a question? We shall take that as a no. So we'd just like to wrap up and thank you all for joining us this morning. And look forward to speaking to you soon. More than welcome, Rob. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
That was wonderful, thank you.
All right, no worries. Have you got the recording, yeah?
Yeah, Rob was on the call as well to record it because I've had problems previously with it before, so hopefully one of them has worked.
Cool, good stuff.
I'll let you know if it hasn't.
Not sure there's anyone who wants to do recordings of that.
Cool.
Wonderful.
All right,
Thanks, Molly.
Thank you. Speak to you. Bye.
Bye.